My mom used my house to bail out my brother. Then I found him hiding under it. I didn't even know my brother had been arrested until the bank called asking why my house had been used as collateral for his bond. Someone had stolen my identity, forged my signature, and nearly cost me everything. The worst part? My own mother kept telling me to let it go because family comes first. I almost believed her. Until I started hearing strange noises coming from beneath my house every single night. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was standing in my kitchen, trying to decide whether I had enough milk for coffee. The woman on the phone sounded too calm. "Mrs. Whittaker, we're calling to verify your authorization for the bond collateral." I laughed because I thought it was a scam. "I'm sorry, what bond?" There was a pause. "The secured bond for Travis Whittaker." My stomach tightened before my mind caught up. Travis was my younger brother. 36 years old, charming when he wanted something, invisible when he owed someone money. What happened to Travis? Another pause. "You may want to contact the bonding company directly." I wrote down the number with my hand shaking. 10 minutes later, I found out my brother had been arrested for assault, reckless endangerment, and violating an old probation order I didn't even know existed. And somehow, my house had been pledged as collateral to get him released. My house. The one I bought after my divorce. The one I worked double shifts to save. The one place in the world that was mine. The bond agent emailed me copies of the paperwork. My name was on every page. My signature sat at the bottom like a stranger wearing my face. They had a copy of my driver's license. My social security number. Even my property tax records. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I called my sister, Renee. She answered on the second ring. Before I said a word, she said, "I can explain." That was how I knew. Not suspected. Knew. "What did you do?" I asked. She started crying immediately, but it felt practiced, like she had been waiting for the chance to perform regret. "Mom said you would never agree." My knees nearly gave out. "Agree to what? Letting you steal my identity?" "He was in trouble, Nora. He needed us. He needed a lawyer, he needed consequences, he did not need my house." Renee sobbed harder. "It was temporary, he was supposed to show up to court. Once he did, it would all be fine." I gripped the edge of the counter. "You forged my signature. It wasn't supposed to hurt you." That's what people say after they hurt someone. Then I heard my mother's voice in the background. "Give me the phone." Renee whispered, "Mom, no." But my mother took it anyway. "Nora," she said, like I was the one causing trouble, "do not make this uglier than it has to be." I laughed once, sharp and bitter. "My house is on the line because my identity was stolen, and you're worried about ugly. Your brother made a mistake." "Which one? Getting arrested, skipping probation, or letting my house get dragged into it?" "He is still your brother. And I am still your daughter." Silence. That silence hurt more than any answer could have. Then she said, "You've always been the strong one." I closed my eyes. There it was. The sentence she used whenever she wanted me to bleed quietly. I was the strong one when Dad died and Travis disappeared for 3 weeks. I was the strong one when Renee needed money after her husband left. I was the strong one when Mom's roof leaked and nobody else could help. Strong in my family meant available. Strong meant useful. Strong meant you didn't get to say no. Not this time. "I'm calling the police," I said. My mother's voice dropped. "If you do that, you will destroy this family." "No," I said, "you already did." I hung up. By noon, a deputy named Officer Halden was sitting at my kitchen table, looking through the documents. He was kind but careful. "These cases can be complicated," he said. "What part is complicated?" "Family involvement, forged documents, bond agreements, will need statements. The bonding company will cooperate, but it may take time. Do I lose my house?" "Not unless he skips court and the bond is forfeited." The room seemed to tilt. "When is court?" He looked down at the paperwork. "Tomorrow morning." I called the courthouse the next day at 10:15. Travis had not appeared. By noon, the bond company had called me twice. By evening, my mother showed up on my porch. She looked smaller than usual in her beige cardigan, but I knew better than to trust that. My mother could weaponize weakness better than anyone I knew. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. She looked past me into the house. "Can I come inside?" "No." Her face tightened. "Nora, don't be cruel. Cruel is stealing your daughter's identity." "I didn't steal anything." "No, you just convinced Renee to do it. She wanted to help. She wanted your approval." That landed. Mom's eyes flickered. Then she looked away toward the street. "Travis is scared." "He should be. He's not like you." "I know. He doesn't think clearly under pressure. Apparently none of you do." She stepped closer. "Please don't press charges against your sister." "Why not?" "Because she has children." I stared at her. "And I have a house. A house can be replaced." That sentence changed something inside me. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, permanent crack. "My home can be replaced," I repeated. She blinked as if she hadn't heard herself. "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "You always do this," I said. "You decide who matters most, and somehow it's never me." Her expression hardened. "Do not talk to me like I'm your enemy. Then stop acting like one." She left crying. For 2 days, I barely slept. The bond company wanted answers. The police wanted statements. Renee sent 12 texts, each one a different version of sorry. Then the noises started. The first night, I thought it was the pipes. A dull thump under the living room floor. Then another. I muted the television and sat frozen on the couch. Nothing. 10 minutes later, a scraping sound dragged beneath my feet. I told myself it was an animal. A raccoon. A possum. Anything that made more sense than the feeling crawling up my spine. The next morning, I checked the crawl space door on the side of the house. It was closed. But the dirt around it looked disturbed. I took a picture. That afternoon, I called a pest control company. They couldn't come until Friday. That night, the sound came again. This time from under my bedroom. A cough. Not a pipe. Not an animal. A human cough. I got out of bed so fast I nearly tripped. I grabbed my phone, locked myself in the bathroom, and called Officer Halden. "I think someone is under my house," I whispered. "Are you safe?" "I don't know." "Stay inside, lock your doors, I'm sending someone." The patrol car arrived 20 minutes later. 2 officers walked around the house with flashlights. They checked the crawl space door. One of them said, "Looks closed." I wanted to scream. I heard coughing. Officer Halden crouched near the small wooden door and shined his light through the gap. "Could be an animal," he said, though his voice had changed. Then he paused. In the dirt beside the foundation were footprints. Fresh ones. Large. Too large for mine. He stood slowly. "Do you have anyone who might come onto the property?" I almost said no. Then I thought of my mother. The way she looked past me into the house. The way she asked to come inside. The way Travis had vanished too cleanly. Officer Halden opened the crawl space door. A sour smell rolled out first. Damp earth. Sweat. Fast food. His flashlight swept across insulation, pipes, old bricks. Then it stopped. "Come out," he called. "Nothing." "Travis Whitaker," he said louder, "we can see you." A shape moved in the darkness. My brother crawled forward on his elbows, covered in dirt, hair greasy, eyes wild. For 1 second, he looked like a child again. The little boy who used to hide behind me when Dad yelled. Then I saw the fast food wrappers. The blanket. The bottles of water. The small battery lantern. He hadn't been trapped. He had been hiding. Under my home. While everyone told me he had run. While my house was at risk. While my mother begged me to protect the family. Travis squinted up into the flashlight. "Nora," he said, "don't freak out." I almost laughed. Officer Haldon pulled him out and cuffed him. That was when I saw the second set of footprints. Smaller ones, leading from the driveway to the crawl space. And back again. I knew before Officer Haldon asked, "Who brought you food?" Travis looked at me. Then away. I stepped closer. "Who brought you food?" He said nothing. Officer Haldon repeated the question. Travis swallowed. "Mom." The word hit harder than the forged signature. My mother had not just helped steal my identity. She had hidden a fugitive beneath my house. For 3 days. The police took Travis away just after midnight. I stood in my yard in my bathrobe, watching the red lights fade down the street. Officer Haldon stayed behind. "We'll need to speak with your mother," he said. "I know. And your sister." "I know." He looked at me gently. "You did the right thing." I wanted those words to comfort me. Instead, I went inside and sat on the kitchen floor until sunrise. Renee came over the next morning. She looked awful, no makeup, puffy eyes, hair pulled into a messy knot. "I didn't know he was under your house," she said before I could speak. I believed her. That was the problem. Renee was guilty, but she was not the mastermind. She had always been weak where Mom was forceful. "I need you to tell the truth," I said. She nodded quickly. "I will. All of it." Her face crumpled. "Nora. There it is." She wiped her eyes. "Mom said if I told everything, Travis would go to prison for years." "He might." "And she said I could lose my kids if I get charged." "You should have thought of that before you used my name." Her mouth trembled. "I know." "No," I said. "You don't, because you're still more afraid of Mom than you are sorry for what you did to me." Renee looked down. That was the first honest thing she did. I made coffee because my hands needed something to do. She sat at my table, the same table where the officer had reviewed the forged documents. "I didn't want to do it," she whispered. "But you did. Mom kept saying you wouldn't understand. She said you had equity and savings and no kids at home, so you could afford the risk." I set the mug down too hard. "I could afford to be violated." She said Travis would be killed in jail. "By who?" Renee hesitated. "People he owed money to." That was new. "What people?" "I don't know." "Renee." "I swear, Mom said he borrowed money from dangerous people. She said jail wouldn't protect him." I sat across from her. "Why was he arrested?" She looked confused. "The assault." "Who did he assault?" "A man outside a bar." "Why?" She shook her head. "I don't know." But something in her face told me she had never asked. My family never asked questions when silence was more convenient. Later that day, I drove to the courthouse to request copies of the arrest report. The clerk warned me it might take time. But by then, I had learned that time was where lies grew. So I waited. When the report came, I read it in my car. Travis had not been arrested after a bar fight. He had been arrested after attacking a process server. The man was trying to serve him papers in a civil lawsuit. A lawsuit filed by a woman named Simone Price. I didn't recognize the name. But the address on the report made my skin go cold. It was 2 streets over from my mother's house. I called Officer Haldon and asked if that meant anything. He couldn't tell me much, but he said, "Be careful who you confront." So naturally, I confronted my mother. I found her at home, sitting in the sunroom with a cup of tea like she hadn't set fire to my life. She looked up when I walked in. I still had a key. For the first time, using it felt like trespassing. "Nora," she said, "you should have called. Like you called before using my house." Her lips pressed together. I assume the police have been dramatic. Travis was hiding under my floor. He had nowhere else to go. He had jail. She flinched. "Don't say that." Why did Simone Price sue him? Her teacup rattled against the saucer. There it was. Fear. Real fear. Not performance. "What did you say?" "Simone Price." She stood. "I don't know." You do. I said I don't know. You're lying. My mother slapped me. Not hard enough to injure. Hard enough to remind me who she thought she was. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I touched my cheek and looked at her. You just answered me. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time I felt nothing. Get out, she whispered. With pleasure. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Not because of noises. Because of silence. My house felt too still after 3 nights of someone breathing beneath it. I kept imagining Travis under the floorboards, listening to me walk, eat, shower, cry. Then I remembered something. The security camera. I had installed a small camera over my driveway after packages started disappearing the year before. It didn't cover the crawl space door directly, but it caught the side yard if someone walked from the driveway around the house. I opened the app. The footage stored 5 days. My hands shook as I scrolled backward. There was my mother at 11:42 p.m., carrying a grocery bag. There she was again the next night. And again. But on the first night, she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her. Not Travis. Older. Wearing a baseball cap, head down. He carried something rectangular under his arm. I froze the video and zoomed in. The image blurred, but I could see enough. A lockbox. The next morning, I sent the footage to Officer Halden. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I searched Simone Price. Her lawsuit was public record. The complaint was brief but devastating. She claimed Travis and my mother had taken $18,000 from her elderly father for home repairs that were never completed. My mother. Not Renee. Not just Travis. My mother's name was on the filing. I read the line 3 times. Gloria Whitaker and Travis Whitaker accepted payment under false pretenses. My mother had not helped Travis because he was in danger. She helped him because if he went to jail, he might talk. The larger truth began to take shape, ugly and obvious. The bond. The forged paperwork. The hiding place. It had never been about saving Travis. It had been about saving herself. Renee called while I was still sitting at my computer. Mom told me not to speak to you. Of course she did. She said you're trying to put all of us in prison. No, Renee. I'm trying to keep myself from losing my home because all of you decided I was disposable. She started crying again, but softer this time. What do you want me to do? Tell Officer Halden everything. I'm scared. So was I when I heard a man coughing under my bedroom. Silence. Then she whispered, I'll go. And she did. For once, Renee chose truth before Mom gave her permission. By the end of the week, my mother was arrested for obstruction and aiding a fugitive. Renee was charged too, but because she cooperated and admitted to the forgery, the prosecutor agreed to consider reduced charges. Travis remained in custody. The bond company backed off my house once the fraud investigation confirmed I had not signed anything. For the first time in days, I could breathe. But the story was not over. 2 weeks later, Officer Halden called. We found something during a search of your mother's house. I sat down. What? A folder with your documents, copies of your license, tax records, mortgage statements. I know, they used them for the bond. There's more. My mouth went dry. What do you mean? They were draft quitclaim forms. I didn't understand at first. Then he explained. Someone had prepared documents that would transfer partial ownership of my house. Not for the bond. Permanently. My mother had been planning to move my property into a family trust. A trust she controlled. I drove to the station and saw the copies myself. My name. My property. Blank signature lines waiting for the same forged hand. That was the larger betrayal. The bond was not the first step. It was a test. If I hadn't noticed, if Travis had shown up to court, if the paperwork had quietly disappeared, my mother would have learned exactly how easy it was to use my identity. And my house would have been next. Not at risk. Gone. I sat across from Officer Halden in a small interview room, and stared at the papers. "My own mother," I said. He didn't answer. There was nothing to say. Court took months. My mother tried to look fragile for the judge. She wore soft colors, she carried tissues. She said she was a desperate mother trying to protect her son. But the video showed her bringing food to Travis under my house. The documents showed my information in her possession. The lawsuit showed a pattern. And Renee testified. Her voice shook, but she told the truth. She said Mom had planned it. Mom had pressured her. Mom had said I would never help unless they forced my hand. When the prosecutor asked why they chose my house, Renee cried. Because Mom said Nora always survives everything. I looked at my mother then. She would not look back. That told me all I needed. Travis was sentenced for skipping bond, the assault on the process server, and the probation violation. Renee received probation, community service, and a felony record that cost her the job she loved. She later wrote me a letter. Not a text. Not a tearful voicemail. A letter. She said she finally understood that being afraid of Mom did not excuse becoming like her. I kept the letter. I did not answer it for a long time. My mother received jail time. Not forever. Not enough, maybe. But enough for the neighborhood to stop calling me dramatic. Enough for people to understand that what happened to me was not a family disagreement. It was a crime. The day after sentencing, I came home and stood in my yard looking at the crawlspace door. I had it replaced with steel. Then I had new cameras installed. Then I changed every lock, every password, every emergency contact. For weeks, I jumped at every noise. A branch tapping a window. The furnace clicking on. The house settling at night. Healing did not feel peaceful at first. It felt like checking the doors twice and sleeping with lights on. But slowly, my home became mine again. One Saturday morning, I painted the front door blue. Not because it needed it. Because I needed to see something new when I came home. My neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, walked over with muffins and said, "That color suits the house." I smiled for the first time in weeks. It suits me too. Months later, Renee came by. She stood on the sidewalk, not the porch. That mattered. "I won't ask to come in," she said. "Good." She nodded. I deserved that. I crossed my arms. She looked thinner, older, but clearer somehow. "I'm in counseling," she said. "The court required it, but I'm staying." I didn't respond. "I'm not here to ask forgiveness." "Then why are you here?" "To say you were right." Those 4 words almost broke me. Not because they fixed anything. Because I had waited my whole life to hear someone in my family say them. Renee wiped her cheek. "Mom trained us to believe your strength meant you didn't need protecting." I looked at my blue door. I did need protecting. "I know." "No," I said, "I protected myself." She nodded. "Yes, you did." We stood there for a long moment. Then she handed me an envelope. "What's this?" "Money, not all of it. I'm paying back what I can every month for the legal fees, the cameras, whatever you had to spend because of me." I took it. Not because the money made us even. Because accountability had to start somewhere. "I'm not ready to be sisters again," I said. "I know. But this is a start." She cried then quietly, without asking me to comfort her. That was new too. A year ago, I would have hugged her just to stop the tears. This time, I let her carry them. My mother wrote from jail twice. The first letter blamed panic. The second blamed me. I didn't open a third. I gave it back to the mail carrier, marked return to sender. Some people think that sounds cold. Maybe it is. But peace sometimes looks cold to people who benefited from your warmth. Travis also tried to call. I declined every time. The last I heard, he was telling relatives I ruined his life. That used to bother me. Now I understand something. People who use you as a hiding place will always call it betrayal when you turn on the lights. I still live in the same house. The house they thought I would risk because family came first. The house my sister used on forged papers. The house my mother tried to control. The house my brother hid beneath while I slept above him, terrified and confused. For a while, I thought the house would always feel haunted. But it doesn't anymore. Now it feels like proof. Proof that I can stand alone. Proof that love without respect is just control wearing a familiar face. Proof that family is not a free pass to destroy someone and call it loyalty. Last week, I heard a noise under the floor. For 1 second, my body remembered everything. Then I listened. It was just the old pipes. I laughed so hard I cried. Then I made coffee, opened my blue front door, and sat on the porch while the sun came up. For the first time in my life, nobody in my family needed rescuing. And neither did I.